Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to A Mighty Blaze Boudoir. I am Mary O'Malley, and along with Kate LeBeau, we are thrilled to welcome tonight Priscilla Oliveras. Priscilla is the USA Today best-selling author of contemporary romance with a Latinx flavor drawn from her Puerto Rican Mexican heritage. Her novels have been called stunning, Kirkus Reviews, Starred Review, excellent, revelatory, Publishers Weekly, Starred Review, and have been recommended by Oprah Daily, NPR, and Entertainment Weekly, who hails Oliveras has been steadily growing her presence as a romance author, one with a knack for heartwarming family ensembles and a cozy sense of home. This summer, Priscilla continues the stunning growth with her most personal book to date, West Side Love Story, which came out from Montlake on June 1st, a heart-stirring romance of star-crossed love, feuding familias, and the unbreakable bonds of sisterhood set against the backdrop of San Antonio's mariachi music scene. Kate and Priscilla are going to spend a little time talking about Priscilla's books and all things romance. And then I will come back in and take questions from the audience. So if you are watching, if you have any questions for Priscilla about anything, please put them into the comments and I will make sure to ask them in just a few minutes. So I'll leave you guys to it.
Hello, Priscilla. I did want to ask you a question. Were you at the 2018 Chicago Spring Fling Writers Conference?
Gosh, I did go to Spring Fling. So yes, maybe the last one before the pandemic. So I think because they don't do it every year. So probably 2018. Yes.
Did you teach a workshop?
Mm-hmm.
Was it the You Got Mail? Did you break down?
I did. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I was in the room. I was in the back.
Oh my gosh!
And so when you came up for when you were recommended for this by one of your friends, I was like, yes, I do remember. I did not raise my hand, did not talk. I never saw the movie You've Got Mail, so I was totally lost. But I loved hearing you talk about your process of writing romance novels. So I think it's so funny that now, 4 years later, we have reconnected on a
what a small the romance world is a lot smaller than we realize.
It really is. That's why I love going to conferences, because you get to know, you see the same people at all these different conferences and everything. Anyways, I wanted to reintroduce myself, I guess. And so you are here, and this is Priscilla's lovely book that I have on display behind me, West Side Love Story. First of all, this cover is absolutely beautiful.
Oh gosh!
When I saw it, I fell immediately in love with it. And I don't normally fall for these illustrated covers as much as I fall for obviously a half-naked man on the cover. I'm one of those. But this is absolutely beautiful. So I just wanted to give some credit to whoever the
I will say the cover artist, and that's one thing that Montlake is my publisher. And from the very beginning, the series is about a group of adopted sisters who have formed a mariachi band, and so there is a lot of strong female power. We can do this together. And from the very beginning, Montlake said they wanted to find a Latina artist to do the covers. And so Lucia Picerno, it's Picerno. I've tagged her on Instagram. Her Instagram is at badassfemme, underscore.
Perfect.
She's done just a beautiful job. I've been so pleased with. She did the cover for West Side Love Story, and she also, this is book 2 that's coming out later this year on November 1st. Kiss Me, Catalina.
Somehow that one's even more stunning.
I think she did just little things here. If you zoomed in, you could see right here the embroidery on his Charro is like are his initials, you know, like that he would totally have. So she just did beautiful things. And one of the, when we were trying to decide between which artists, they sent me several and we kind of talked about different, but what, like her signature is, if you look really closely, I can try to do it. And then, is if you look on Mariana's cheek, like there's a little heart. It looks kind of like a blur right now, but one of Lucia's signatures is on at least one figure in her illustrations, in her drawings, that has a heart on the cheek. And it, so when I noticed that, I thought, oh gosh, that's just, you know, like it just for a romance. And I just loved the theme. She's a feminist artist. And that, so that theme kind of shows up in a lot of her work. And for me, it felt right for the Capuleta sisters. And she's just done a beautiful job kind of bringing them to life, you know, on the covers.
And so I was reading a few reviews of your book prior to, just because I wanted to see what everyone else was saying about them. And one of the things I loved is so many reviews were calling this just like an amazing feminist Romeo and Juliet retelling. Like they were just, every review was like feminist, 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 feminist. So I absolutely love that people, I mean, it's hard not to pick up on that, obviously, but it's always wonderful to see time and time again, like feminist books that are overtly feminist and in feminist genre, obviously. But can you tell us a little bit about the premise of West Side Love Story, so that people who haven't read it yet, it is out. It came out in June, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah. God,
so West Side Love Story is out already, and then Kiss Me Catalina will come out on the 1st of November. But West Side Love Story, both of them are like, I don't like to say retellings. They're more like my reimaginings of Shakespeare plays, really like musicals based on his plays. Hence the titles are kind of like Broadway musicals, a West Side Story and West Side Love Story, and Kiss Me Kate, Kiss Me Catalina. So Romeo and Juliet and Taming of the Shrew. But West Side Love Story is, instead of dueling, like they're dueling families, but these are dueling the two families and our two star-crossed lovers, Mariana and Angelo. The feud between their families, between their familias, stems back from like their patriarchs, and it's a romance kind of like a woman. I don't want to give too much away, but so like it was two best friends, and a woman kind of got, you know, in the mix there, and they were also, the patriarchs were also starting together like a commercial property and you know, business, and like it kind of just they broke apart. So flash to present day, and it is they're battling on opposite sides of the gentrification line that's happening in San Antonio. But they're also, the sisters have formed an all-female mariachi band, and they enter the battle of the mariachi bands. And of course, one of the bands that they are up against is led by their father's arch nemesis. And so there's dueling mariachi bands, and the oldest Capuleta sisters, Mariana, and she has met the nephew of their father's nemesis. And similar to Romeo and Juliet, they meet each other, they're sparks, and they don't know who the other is. And so throughout the romance, it is these two really good people trying to find a way to respect their family and to hold true to their family, but also be true to themselves. And so you get star-crossed lovers, and the feud is the you know, in the battle of the mariachi bands, as well as the gentrification battle lines and what's happening between the families.
And you mentioned that, that you're kind of shying away from the word retelling, and I've noticed that a lot, that people are preferring the term reimaginings, because when you say retelling, what you're expecting is almost a scene by scene remake with slightly different twists or, you know, characters and stuff. So I have noticed that there's been a lot of talk about changing the word, unless it's a direct retelling, changing the term retelling to reimagining. So what inspired you to, you know, Romeo and Juliet is probably one of the most well-known stories in history, perhaps. Just I had to read it in high school. I'm pretty sure like every single freshman year class.
Right.
English class,
Yeah.
which had
And
Romeo
one
and
year,
Juliet.
there's always a Shakespeare like segment throughout, every year of high school. So yeah.
So it's definitely, a big book to take on to reimagine. So you said that you love, West Side Story and things like that.
Mhm.
But what inspired you to really take this on at this point and just
Sure.
put this story to paper?
I think it's like a conglomeration of things. And I'll be honest, the first idea I had, a really good friend of mine, her name is, she's another Latinx rom author, Sabrina Soul. She also writes as Annette Macias Chavez. At her first book as Annette Macias Chavez is getting ready to come out on the 1st of September. It's Big Chicas Don't Cry, but about, gosh, the pandemic years kind of glommed together. So maybe a year or two before the pandemic, Sabrina/Annette sent me a text message with a link. And she said, "Hey, Pris, I saw this online and I immediately thought of you." And when I clicked the link, it was to a local news show out in California that was interviewing an all-female mariachi band. And it was, I don't know, maybe about 2.5 minutes. And while I was watching that, I was just, it was like, whatever you want to say, a light bulb, like a feeling grabbed me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to tell, like I know some girls like this. Like I have to tell these girls stories. So first I had the idea of the Capuleta Sisters, like a group of like a found familia, not 8 sisters that, biologically, but a found familia. And then an important question for all authors is that, like, what if? So like, what could be their problem? What if this happened? And so in trying to think about, okay, so I have these sisters that are in a mariachi band. So now what? And when the idea came to me about, okay, so maybe they enter a competition, they need the money to help their parents, or to help their family, and trying to personalize it, I realized, sure, they're in a competition. So yes, every other band is going to want to beat them, but why? Like, what could make it, like, what are the personal stakes? And I thought about, what if there's another band that has like a personal grudge or a personal, there's some kind of personal conflict. And because I write with a lot of family themes, it just naturally kind of came to me like, okay, 2 families. And then as soon as I had that idea, like Romeo and Juliet just came to me. And as an English major, I loved my Shakespeare classes. I love, I still, of all of my college texts, my Shakespeare, this huge big book of all of Shakespeare's stories is on my keeper shelf. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. Like Romeo and Juliet this has to be it. Like, and then it became a challenge of how can I, like, an homage to Shakespeare whose works I have studied and relished, but how could I make it my own, and like my own version of the stories that I like to tell about the Latinx community, and contemporarize it, contemporaryize it. I don't know if that's a word, whatever that word would be, to put it to today. And so it just kind of snowballed from like those what ifs, and then my passion. So, and how I would want to challenge myself. Like, how could I still, recognize and pay homage to Shakespeare, and also to West Side Story. I knew that there were like songs or beats or, or lyrics that that I enjoy, or, that I recognize from West Side Story. Could I get those in my story, but in my book, but in a natural way? So I like watched Romeo and Juliet multiple times. And I watched West Side Story a couple times.
Well, which Romeo and Juliet is your favorite?
The one with Claire Danes.
Okay. So that's like everyone's favorite.
Yes. So I watched that one. I looked at like Spark Notes to see like what are the themes and all of that. And I did all this research, and then I set it aside, and I told myself, okay, all of that is like in here. Now I want to tell my story, and hopefully some of that will come in naturally. Organically. I did not want to plant and plot how like this line or that line or this, kind of thing. I just hoped that by osmosis or whatever, it would come together with what I was. So, like when there's a scene where Kat the second youngest sister, and Mariana are in the car, and Mariana and Kat says, "Oh, you look pretty tonight," and Mariana says, "I feel pretty," and literally, like, I typed that, and I like had like a, oh my gosh, yeah, that's like the lyric, that's like right, and so I just went with it because it came, and so I hope if you're a West Side Story fan and you notice those little things, like that it feels natural and not like I planted them, because I wanted it to be more organic.
So is Catalina's story then also music centered?
Catalina's story is so this is that's that one that's coming out. You meet you meet Catalina in book 1 because you meet all of the sisters. Her hero is Patricio, who is the host, like the MC of the Battle of the Mariachi Bands, and his record label is sponsoring it. So Kiss Me Catalina is my retelling of Taming of the Shrew. And rather than in Taming of the Shrew, Petruchio is, comes, they get married, and he takes her to like his kingdom or his country, in Kiss Me Catalina, Patricio is privately, like, he's having like writer's block, and he's supposed to be like, his record label is waiting on like his next album. So they sign a contract. They offer Catalina a contract to go on the road with Patricio for the west leg part, like the last part of his concert tour, to do like a set on during his concert, but also to write his next album with him. So instead of him whisking her off to his country, he whisks her off on his concert tour. And so it's kind of like a road trip romance, along the way with different stops for concerts. And he has a beach house, like an escape place in Puerto Vallarta, and they go to Puerto Vallarta, and but it's a road trip romance.
Oh, okay. Well, those are like super big right now. So I am pretty sure, I swear, like every other person in my DMs is asking me for road trip romances.
Oh, yay.
And there are quite a few out there, but
yeah,
there's always a high need for more. There's something about people just being kind of trapped in a vehicle together that just seems to really get romance readers going. I guess it's like forced proximity, but instead of forced proximity in like a hotel room, or
right.
Now we're trapped in a moving hotel room together. So I don't know very much about mariachi music. And
okay.
I was wondering if you could, I don't want you to give me, I don't want you to have to like give a brief or a long history of it or anything like that, but what makes mariachi music? Because I feel like, unfortunately, what a lot of people think of when they think of mariachi music, it can be like, oh, I go out to eat in a Mexican restaurant, I hear mariachi, and so what makes mariachi music so like beautiful and iconic and representative of the like Mexican culture,
sure,
and Latinx culture as a whole? I'd like to know more about it.
Well, I'll say it's more so like the Latinx culture, like we have this big umbrella that's all Latinx, but like all the different countries, like even within my familia, like Puerto Rico, where my mom is from, we have differences than like my papi's from San Antonio, where both of the books are actually set. So like are different from like Tex-Mex or Mexican, different from the DR, different from all the different countries in South America. So we share like the same language. However, there are even differences like in some of the words and some of the idioms, things in the languages. So mariachi music is from Mexico. Like my familia in Puerto Rico doesn't really, they could listen to it, but it's not from Puerto Rico. So that's a big differentiation. I would want to like make sure is clear. But even within Mexico, where if you come from different regions, like northern Mexico, there's like ranchera, there's like banda, there's like you hear like Mexican polkas, you hear mariachi. So mariachi music like came from, and gosh, now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, let me remember all of my research and make sure I don't give misinformation. But like from the Jalisco area, like that around that area of Mexico. And one of the things, and we talk about it a little bit in West Side Love Story, it's always predominantly been a real male dominated. Like, so like when it first started, decades and, like a century ago, it was the men who played. And a typical mariachi band has like the instruments will be a guitar, a vihuela, which is a smaller guitar, a guitarrón, which is a bigger one. So they each have different sounds. There'll be a violin. There is a trumpet, and gosh, let me think. I'm trying to think what else. So the three, the guitar, the violin. Sometimes there is there might be like shakers, either like egg shakers. There might be and I have seen some that have an accordion, but it's kind of like there's a little difference between like mariachi and what's also known as ranchera, but they're I'm trying to answer your question correctly as far as like what I can say. I think like it is just, it's so much a part of like thinking back of like my dad's family in San Antonio. It's a part of our history. It's a part of our culture. So in a lot of celebrations, like my tia's birthday in San Antonio, my cousins will call because they've hired like a mariachi to come, or my sister just retired from the military, and so part of our celebration we have a mariachi group come, so for birthdays, for celebrations. But it started out, like years ago, and it was mostly men. But as it's come through the years, there have been more and more female performers, trying to get into, break into the industry. And in West Side Love Story, I do mention like some female performers that have been through the decades.
Mm.
There are more and more, like we're seeing, honestly, the sisters, their group is Mariachi Las Nubes, but they were kind of in the back of my mind. There's a group called Mariachi Las Salteñas in San Antonio that I've seen perform. And so I kind of have those ladies in the back of my head. And we're seeing more and more, you can follow them on Instagram, but more and more all female mariachis. So they're kind of breaking that glass ceiling like we are in a lot of fields. But the music itself is just, I know it's something that for me, it's just been part of every family celebration that we have, every reunion that we have, that, that music is played. It's just part of, like my family and what it seems, what's important, but also what's natural, and also like what's home. I was stationed, I lived overseas for multiple years, and I had Linda Ronstadt, her father's Mexican. And so Linda Ronstadt has a CD called Canciones de mi Padre, and it means my father's songs, and they're all mariachi songs. And I would listen to that because the title was apropos. It helped me feel like closer to my dad and closer to my family.
Wow. It's beautiful that you can have just this piece of your culture that travels through all these generations and all these big moments. And so I can see how looking, you feel very, very fondly every time you think about mariachi.
Yeah.
It's at everything, every big event, which is, it's like, I also read that it's like seen as it can be very romantic.
Oh, yes.
So I think it just fits so well into your story as a whole. I listened to some clips. It's absolutely beautiful. I needed to I was reading the book, I was like, okay, but I need to actually feel this music, not just read about it.
If you go to my website, the web page for West Side Love Story, there is a link to a Spotify playlist, and it's all the songs that I listened to while I was writing. And so there are a lot of female mariachis. There are some like Vicente Fernandez and Alejandro Fernandez are a father-son pair that are like mariachi royalty. Actually, they were kind of the inspiration for Patricio and his father. My what if, like Patricio and his father's relationship is not what I'm saying, real. Like, it's my, well, what if this and what if this and what if this, and that's how I came up with my two characters. But if you'd like to hear a little bit of mariachi music or hear kind of like the music that was inspired, if you just go to my website and the page for West Side Love Story, you'll find a Spotify playlist there.
That's awesome. I've seen a lot of authors doing that, even when their books don't revolve. Like, I feel like when your book revolves around music, that's just an amazing addition to it. But I've seen authors doing that also, where they'll just share the songs that they listen, like you did, like listen to while they were writing, even if their book isn't about music at all.
Yeah,
so I'm loving getting to know all this new music.
Yeah,
and how it inspired authors to write,
right.
Which is just awesome.
And it's different kinds. I'll say, like with my previous books, I've shared like in a blog or something, but with this book, it's the first time I put the playlist, like I created the playlist on Spotify but I need to, because I do have, usually what I do, I'm listening to music while I'm writing, and I use Scrivener. And so if a song comes up that really speaks to me about the characters or about a scene that either I'm writing at that moment or that I have written, but a song that I know like speaks to these two characters, I'll make a note in Scrivener so that by the time I get to the end of the book, I've kind of got a playlist. So I have those. I just haven't created the Spotify playlist. So I need to go back for my previous books to share that.
I love that it makes you feel like you're on the writing journey with the author, which I think is just a really fun bonus. Because with social media these days, back in the day, you'd read a book, and if you liked it, you might write a letter and like put it in the post to the author, And nowadays you get to, we get little snippets of works in progress that authors write, or, you might get inspiration or like what they're inspired by and things like that. And it's so much fun to feel like you're a part of the journey with the author themselves, which is, I don't know. People have a lot of bad things to say about social media sometimes. And I'm just like,
right.
Look at all the amazing things that it does, especially in the romance community.
Right. And I agree with you. I feel like from the author's perspective, yes, social media, all those negatives that they say, but thinking about the positives, not that I'm writing my book on my own, because I'm talking with other authors and while I'm writing, I'm not in my writing cave so alone anymore because of technology. So I'm talking with other writer friends as we cheer each other on. You got it, you can do it. But also it's nice connecting with other readers who just about books we love, but also like hearing, when readers read my book and they post about it, and we can talk about it. To me, I enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, it never really occurred to me until recently how amazing it must be as an author to get to be on the writing process with other authors. Because again, like back in the day, you were just writing in isolation. You had like your editor, maybe you had a couple friends who were also writing, or you took a class with. But now I know so many authors have like group chats, and they're always inspiring each other and cheering each other on. And I think that kind of companionship along the what can be a very stressful process.
Yes,
is really something special.
Well, like I mentioned to you before we started, I live in Florida, but actually right now I'm up in New York. I was in the Brooklyn area visiting my girls, but tonight I'm with several author friends, and we're two of us are going to have a write-in over the next couple of days, like try to cheer each other on to meet our word count. But tonight we were just having a good time, enjoying each other's company and catching up. But I want to show real quickly, I'm at Adriana Herrera's house. This is her latest.
I love that cover too.
Yes, it's a beautiful one. But like those author groups, whether we're able to meet in person or like during the pandemic, if it was, video chats or text messages, it helps inspire you and helps kind of give you that get up and go when you're pulling your hair out because like your characters aren't talking to you or whatever.
So Sophie's comment just popped up on the screen, and she actually recreates scenes from romance novels and other things.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh, I love
Legos.
If you're not following her, they're so amazing. If on Instagram, I love them.
She's incredibly talented.
Yes.
I love seeing her work. I don't know how, like, people find little niche things like that to get into, but they're so cute. And so I'm always following her.
I will say, Sophie, if you haven't, make sure you drop your Instagram in the chat so people can follow you, because it's so cool.
Absolutely. Sophie, please do that. Excellent. Sure. Well, I popped back in. We've got some questions.
Okay.
And the first one is from Sophie. How do you decide on creating an adopted family versus blood siblings?
Really, it's just, I think for me, it was the series that I've written before, right? So like my Match Perfection series with the Fernandez sisters, they were all blood sisters. And then my Keys to Love series that's set in Key West, the same, they were, all blood brothers and sisters. And so wanting to write something different, wanting to research something a little different, because I did make sure, like I did a lot of research into the foster system and what was legally allowed in the state of Texas. And I got on the phone and I called like the DFAS in San Antonio, local there, to find, to ask them, look, this is my setup. This is kind of what my idea is. So wanting to challenge, and I call them to make sure, is this believable? Is this possible? But so kind of wanting to challenge myself a little bit more or write something a little bit different is what led me to the idea of, I knew I wanted to have all female sisters. Frankly, a family that has 8, or now there's 9. So like 9, all girls, was like, whoa. So having them kind of they're all from the foster care system. They've been adopted, seemed a little bit more believable than a family that had 9 girls.
So how many books are there going to be in this series?
Well, I'm contracted for 2. So right now it's these 2, and then publishing as it is. We'll see if there is another one. I kind of have an idea for the twins, but I also have some other ideas that I'm pitching. So we'll see what they think is the good way to go.
Awesome. And Leisha asks, who's been your hardest character to write about and why?
Oh, okay. I will tell you that. Let me see. Catalina and Patricio kind of challenged me, mostly because they are both so strong-willed, such strong characters, very different from me. And so I worried a little bit about being able to write them. And so honestly, I kind of teasing, but kind of reality is as a way to tell me, Priscilla, get out of the way. With Catalina, in the beginning, I got to a point, when I needed to start writing, I had researched and I had done all my character, building and thinking and all of that. And so with Catalina, I was like, okay, what you need to do is say, what would Priscilla do? And then Catalina's going to do the opposite. So that was for her. And then with Patricio, I wanted him, he's really strong alpha, but I did not want him to be like an alpha a-hole. That's not a kind of character whose head I wanted to be in. So I struggled in the beginning with him because I wanted to make sure that Priscilla, didn't weaken him with my, because I'm not a strong in your face kind of person. And really it just took me remembering that I'm not writing me, I'm writing them. And so kind of like take myself out of the way and just crawl into their head and trust that I knew him, well enough. So just to give him the reins. But I will say I struggled a little bit getting started because I was so iffy about, can I write these 2 really strong in your face kind of characters when I'm not that? But that's an author's job. Like, get out of the way and let your characters go.
Yeah. Whenever I tried to write a story back in the day, every character was just me. Like, I was just like, they're all stubborn bitches. Like, I'm like, oh, sorry, like that's just how it all came out. Like,
I will tell you, stubborn. I was worried with Patricio because I wrote the scene where he goes to talk to her parents. And I felt like I was writing him in the part where he, like the introspective part, I felt like I was weakening him. And I had like a 2-hour drive one time. And so I got on the Sonali Dave, is another author, a friend of mine. She writes amazing books. She's just written the Jane Austen.
Yeah, we just had her on a couple in June, actually. She was our June
good.
author.
Oh, good. Yes.
Lovely.
And her new like women's fiction, The Vibrant Years, is coming out later this year. But anyway, so any Sonali Dave book, I would say yes, buy, you'll love it. But Sonali and I were on the phone and for like that whole 2-hour drive talking about Kiss Me Catalina and we, what we were talking about. She said, look, yes, you need to have a strong character, but it's okay for the reader to love him when we're in his head. We need to know why he feels that way and why. So it's not that you're weakening him. You're just showing that, that underside that maybe he doesn't show everybody, but that the reader needs to know for the reader to fall in love with him. Yeah. Which would, so it was nice validation. Like, just keep writing. Like, what you're doing, trust your craft and trust, what you've known and trust your characters.
So that brings us right into our next question from Leisha. Do your book characters talk to you? If they do, have you ever had to change something in the story because of what they've come out with, what they've told you?
Yes. Like one of the first instance that this comes to mind was when I was writing Their Perfect Melody. It's book 3 in the Match Perfection series. And Diego is a Chicago PD. He lives in born and raised in the Humboldt Park area. He's, Puerto Rican. And Lili is the youngest of the Fernandez sisters, and she is a victim's advocate. So for Diego, he sees everything black and white, right? There's a right and a wrong, and some of that stems from his backstory and what he experienced growing up. And Lili, as a victim's advocate, lives like in the gray areas. So like she, it's all about emotion and that. Lili, the very first time that she invites Diego home with her, and it's kind of later in the book. And so the scene ends like right when they get to their house, and we're supposed to be in his point of view, and he just needed to go inside with her. And the scene was just not working, and I kept writing and I kept, deleting. And then I was driving to campus, like to my job teaching on campus, and Diego rode with me to work. Like, he rode shotgun, and intellectually, I know Diego was not in my car, right? But to me, Diego was sitting beside me in my car, the same way I've had a beer with another hero on the beach, and I went for a run with Ana Maria, who is the heroine in Anchored Hearts, but I was like, what is going? What? Basically, just having a conversation about why is this not working? Like what? And he really was just telling me. And I don't want to sound like I'm, but he was really just saying like, I wouldn't do that. Like, I need to do this and I need to say this. And it was mostly just me, Priscilla, having an idea in my head and trying to push it and needing to get the same way I needed to get out of the way with Catalina and Patricio, like get out of the way and just just trust that I'm inside their head and let them speak to me and go with it. But I had to kind of have that conversation with him for him to tell me that's not what I want to do, so stop trying to make me do that.
Stop trying to make him go home with a girl. I'm not ready.
Right. Well, I will be honest, he still went home with the girl, but like the way it transpired, he said, like when he was kind of changed because of, I just got myself out of the way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love everything about it. And in all of my book selling days, you're certainly not the only author that has full conversations with their characters.
Yes.
And I write nonfiction. I would think that to write fiction, these are real people.
Yeah.
The duration of your crafting this novel. These are real characters and real people. And I can only imagine that you have to have that relationship with them. they have to be able to talk to you and tell you what they need and what they want. I think that is absolutely perfect. Perfect.
Well, I can tell you, I keep telling myself I need to write like another person who's like into exercise, or because when I wrote Anchored Hearts, Ana Maria she's a firefighter paramedic, but she's also a physical fitness trainer and nutritionist. So there were like a couple times where I would be like, we need to have a conversation. And she would be like, okay, put your running shoes on and let's go for a run. Right. So I'd go for a run with her. And now I'm like, boy, all these writing snacks are catching up with me. I need to write another person who's going to make me go out and run.
Like, note to self, never write a character that runs, because I will not do it. It will not.
You see me running, look behind me, something's chasing me.
I did want to, Sophie is, who does the Lego art, is her tag is, or username is the Reading Year of Hattie, Hattie. So you guys want to follow her?
Wait, yes.
So freaking cute. I can like show.
Her handle is
little things like this.
She does so many cool. Yeah, if you follow her.
Kate, repeat that again so I can put it in the chat.
Oh, the Reading Year of Hattie.
Hattie.
It's a nod to Sarah McLean.
Yes,
book.
like the Year of Hattie, which is one of my favorite. Actually, I'm teaching a romance class for an MFA program this semester, and the Regency in the historical book that we're reading is Hattie's book.
Oh, I love it so much. And I think the Sarah McLean just came out with a book.
Yes, she just had her second Hell's Bells book just came out. I think it's Heartbreaker.
Yeah.
Just came out on Tuesday. So if you've never read a Sarah McLean, I would totally.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I love Sarah. Yes, I cannot more highly recommend one of her books.
She's amazing. All right, so our final question.
I'm sorry. Usually I'm better at reading the comments, so I'm sorry I haven't been paying attention. If anybody asked a question, if you asked a question that we didn't answer, shoot me a message on Instagram or something, and I'll answer it. Sorry.
Absolutely. Margaret wants to know, did you plan on hooking both the Shakespeare geeks and the musical nerds with your book? Was that how you went into it, or did it just work out that way?
For one,
I think it kind of just worked out, right? Like, really, I will tell you, I was thinking Romeo and Juliet. And so the names of the characters were different initially, but then as I started researching more about gentrification in San Antonio, and I knew about, like, on the east side of town, the Pearl Brewery District, where Mariana and Angelo actually go and have a picnic with two of the teens. I knew that had happened, but as I started researching and seeing that gentrification was moving more to the west side of town, and in West Side Story, there are a lot of little places that that to my family they'll resonate as important, like rounds 2 and 3 of the Battle of the Mariachi Bands take place at the Majestic Theater for 2 reasons. One, because yes, it is a theater where they have concerts. So there have been like famous mariachi concerts there, but also because my papi, when he was 15, my dad, when he was 15, was an usher, was a movie theater at that point. So he was an usher at the Majestic Theater. And there are a lot of, like, something happens at the Basilica, a Little Flower Basilica. And I picked that place specifically because my grandparents had their 50th wedding vow renewal at the Basilica. So I wanted it there. And my dad was born and raised like on the southwest side on C Street, where Angelo mentions having lived with his parents. So I started out with just Angelo kind of being from the west side. But then as I learned that more gentrification was happening on that side, I thought, okay, the sisters need to live on that side. And then because it was the west side, I just kind of was like, you know what, I'm just going to totally lean into the musicals and not forget Romeo and Juliet, but I'm going to lean into the musicals by them, West Side Love Story. And I already had the idea for Kat's books. So Taming of the Shrew, Kiss Me Kate. And so kind of just dove into that pool and had a good time with it.
I love it. I love how you've combined your cultural history with your family history and personal history, and brought it all together with, a reimagining of these classic books. It's mind blowing to me how you can bring all these components together into these beautiful books. And that's obviously why you're seeing so many starred reviews. I mean, I'm not the only one who's blown away by your talent for doing this.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely wonderful having you here tonight. Thank you for everyone who joined us and commented. Lots of comments, Priscilla, that you can go through. Lots of fun stuff. If you liked what you saw here, I would ask that you subscribe to the Mighty Blaze YouTube channel.
Yes.
And follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all those good places. And this interview will live forever on YouTube, so you can share it from there. And then if you want to make sure that you never miss an event, go to the Mighty Blaze website and sign up for our newsletter. And you will get once a week just a little rundown of anything you might have missed the week before and all the good stuff coming up in the following week. And thank you again, Priscilla. This has been, I wasn't putting all the little things into the chat that normally we do, because I was absolutely fascinated listening to this conversation. And I love it. Absolutely. And I also, as some of the people mentioned in the chat, want to go and listen to mariachi music with a new ears now, a whole new set of ears. So thank you for everything. This has been a wonderful interview.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been wonderful chatting.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Adios.